So why do some people not get saved? Okay, because the reason I bring this up is I've seen this a lot in, if I answer a question in Yahoo Answers or in response to a video I've made, or sometimes I'll reply to other people's videos and this will come up where people will say, that they went to church for a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or whatever, and they had all this pain and depression and this and that, and they prayed for God to take it away, prayed for God to come into their life, and it just never happened. And so their conclusion is, therefore, God isn't real. Now, there's the possibility that these people are just making this up and none of this even happened. But for the most part, when I've discoursed with these people, like they do seem to be telling the truth. They do seem to be that they did go to church for a while and they did ask God to come into their life. So why didn't it happen? Why didn't they get saved? Why didn't they get God? And my answer to that question is because they didn't want him. They really didn't want him. And I swear, every time I start calling people out on this stuff, it just gets confirmed that they didn't want him, okay? So when people are saying they want God, like these people that I'm talking about, when they're saying they wanted God and they asked for 3 years, they didn't want God. They wanted their pain to go away. They wanted their depression to go away. They wanted to feel good or to be happy. But they didn't want God. They didn't want to be changed. They didn't want to have to go through a metamorphosis. They didn't want to give up particular things in their life or give up particular friendships or other relationships or whatever. They wanted maybe the peace that would come with Christ, but they didn't want everything else. They didn't want the whole package. And so when you ask God to come into your life, you either get God or you don't. You either get the whole package or you really don't get any of it, okay? So these people who say they wanted God into their life, I mean, ultimately they're liars. They don't realize it, but they're liars because they have like a conception of what God should be. They have a conception of what God should do. And then when, they're seeking God or they want God into their life, they want that preconceived notion of God. They want the God that they define to come into their life. They don't want the actual God to come into their life. And I say that when I have gone back and forth with these people, they prove that to me because I'll start talking about various, ways to be, or God is this, God is holy, and they'll start saying, I don't want all these holy rules, or, I don't see what the problem is with homosexuality. If people, if that's what they choose, that's fine. Or if that's the way they're born, that's up to them. So they start telling me that they don't want holiness. Well, God is a holy God. So if you don't want holiness, how are you going to get the holy God? It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense, okay? So, actually, it makes perfect sense. They don't want God. Just like I said, they don't want God. They want maybe to be forgiven. They want a free pass. They want out of their depression. Basically, what they want is they want to keep doing the same stuff, but there's no consequences. So, like, let's say that these people are, sleeping with a bunch of different people. Well, they want God to come into their life, and they want to be forgiven, and they want peace, and they want to go to heaven, and they want all this stuff. But do they want to be, have their sin cast into light? Do they want to see that what they're doing is wrong? Do they want to be put into a position where now they've got to start making changes? Now, if you start making those changes, you're going to have to give stuff up in your life, and you're going to have to give people up in your life. And whereas people, your circle of friends or whatever, they used to think you're real cool. Now maybe they're going to think that you're lame. So there's all this stuff that comes with accepting the holy God. So like I said, people, I don't care if they've been in church 10 years, okay? I know God is real and God is a holy God. So if you've been trying to get God for 10 years, or you know somebody who's been trying to get God for 10 years or 5 years or 6 months or whatever, and it hasn't happened, it's because you don't actually want him. So I feel sure about that. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you have any video requests, leave those down below. Thanks for listening. God bless.